You think being kind is enough to navigate this world, that showing up with good intentions, keeping your head down and playing fair will somehow protect you from the storm that's always raging around you. But look closely. Look at who gets ignored, who gets taken advantage of, who's overlooked the moment they show any vulnerability. It's not the cruel, it's not the arrogant. It's the ones who believe that their goodness alone will shield them from harm. The world doesn't operate on fairness. It's a battleground where the weak are trampled by those who understand that power isn't about being liked. It's about being respected. And respect? Respect comes when you have the strength to stand firm, to set boundaries, and to make your presence felt. The Stoics understood that life's struggles aren't just obstacles, they're opportunities for growth. So, if you're ready to stop being stepped on, if you're ready to turn your pain into power, and if you're ready to understand how to navigate this world on your own terms, then you're in the right place. If this resonates with you and you're ready to grow, to build your inner strength and resilience, please subscribe to be committed to understanding life through a lens of strength, clarity, and Stoic wisdom. Take that first step toward becoming the person you were always meant to be. It's easy to think that being good is enough. We're told from an early age that kindness, empathy, and understanding will lead to a better world. That if you show up with good intentions, if you keep your heart open, if you do the right thing, the universe will eventually reward you for it. But when you look around, when you pay attention to who rises to the top, it becomes clear. The good ones aren't the ones who thrive. In fact, they're often the ones who get hurt the most. They get overlooked, taken for granted, and trampled on. So why does it feel like the good people end up suffering? It's because the world doesn't reward purity. It doesn't reward the gentle souls who quietly try to make a difference. The world rewards strength. Strength to stand firm when everything around you is falling apart. Strength to withstand the blows, the betrayals, and the harshness of life without breaking. The world rewards those who can carry the weight of everything that's thrown at them and keep moving forward, undeterred. The problem is, you might not have been told that. You were told that kindness would protect you. You were told that playing fair would ensure a safe path. But as you've learned, that's not always the case. You've seen it, haven't you? The moment you offer a hand, someone grabs it and pulls you down. The moment you stay silent, they mistake it for weakness. You try to play by the rules, but others break them without consequence. And so, you start questioning, was I wrong to think that goodness could save me? The truth is, it never could. Not in the way you imagined. The world isn't built on kindness. It's built on strength, clarity, and discipline. And without these, you'll only be a target for those who understand this harsh truth. The Stoics understood this too. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. It's not about being good in the world's eyes. It's about being strong in your own mind. Without that inner strength, the world will chew you up. So, what do? Do you keep showing up, hoping things will get better? Or do you start becoming the kind of person who doesn't bend, doesn't break, and doesn't apologize for taking up space? As you begin to understand this, something changes. You realize that being kind, being good, is not enough anymore. It's not that kindness is wrong. It's that it's not enough to protect you in a world where people will take as much as you give. And that's the difference between the good and the strong. The strong have boundaries. They know what they will and won't accept. They don't let their compassion blind them to the reality that there are people who will exploit their softness for their own gain. They don't let their silence be mistaken for compliance. When they stand back, it's not because they're afraid. It's because they've learned to choose their battles. And in doing so, they become the kind of person who isn't just surviving, They're thriving. They've built a life where their values are clear and their strength is undeniable. It's easy to think that being the bigger person is always the right choice, but that's not always the case. Sometimes being the bigger person means walking away from the things, the people, and the situations that drain you. It's about having the strength to let go of what no longer serves you. But here's the challenge. Walking away doesn't always look like victory. It doesn't always feel like success. In fact, it can often feel like a loss. You'll second-guess yourself, wondering if you should have done more, fought harder, stayed longer. And that's where it gets tricky, because the world doesn't want you to let go. It wants you to stay attached, to keep investing in people and situations that will only leave you empty. But the Stoics understood something vital about this. You are not obligated to bear the weight of the world on your shoulders. There's a freedom in realizing that when you stop trying to please everyone, when you stop trying to prove yourself to others, you begin to take back control. And that's the turning point, when you realize that your worth isn't dependent on what others think of you. It's not about being liked or understood. It's about being grounded in your own sense of self. You no longer need external validation to feel whole. You learn that strength comes from within, and it doesn't require constant reassurance or approval. Carl Jung spoke to this when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." It's about embracing your true self, not the version of you that others want to see. And in doing so, you begin to move through life with a quiet strength, unshaken by the chaos around you. That quiet strength, though, isn't just about keeping your emotions in check. It's about being strategic with your energy. It's about recognizing that not everything deserves your time. Not every fight is worth having. And that's where the next lesson comes in. Boundaries. It's one thing to know your worth, but it's another thing entirely to protect it. Your boundaries are what keep your strength intact. Without them, people will push you, take from you, and wear you down. But once you learn to set and enforce your boundaries, you become a force to be reckoned with. People start to understand that you won't tolerate being treated poorly. They see that your kindness is not weakness, it's a choice. And they begin to respect you, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it by holding your ground. The world doesn't reward kindness, it rewards strength. It rewards those who are unapologetically themselves, who understand that the most powerful thing you can do is to walk away when necessary, to speak your truth when it matters, and to never compromise on your values. Strength isn't about being the loudest, the most dominant, or the most aggressive. It's about being clear on who you are, what you stand for, and what you will and won't tolerate. And once you reach that point, you become undeniable, not because you've mastered the world around you, but because you've mastered yourself. That's when the true power begins, when you stop looking for validation and start commanding respect through your actions, your presence, and your unshakable sense of self. The world will test you, it will challenge you, but it can't break you, because now you are the one who decides what stays and what goes. And that is where your true strength lies. Every time you've been hurt, it felt like the world was breaking you down, piece by piece. You might have wondered why it had to happen, why the pain of betrayal seemed to cut deeper than any physical wound. And why does it sting so much? Because you cared. You gave more of yourself than anyone deserved, and still, it wasn't enough. It feels like the universe is telling you that no matter how much you try, no matter how much you give, it will never be enough to protect you. The world doesn't always reward goodness, and that truth hits hard, especially when you least expect it. You start questioning yourself, wondering if there's something wrong with your approach, something inherently flawed about your kindness. But what if I told you that the pain of betrayal is not a sign of your weakness, but of your strength? It's a wake-up call, a challenge to stop expecting fairness from a world that doesn't operate on those terms. You see, betrayal isn't about you. It's about the choices others make, and those choices are rarely as personal as they seem. The people who betray you didn't do it because they're evil. They did it because they could. That's the hard truth. They took advantage of your goodness, your trust, your open heart, because there were no consequences for their actions. It's not about you being too soft, or too trusting, or too kind. It's about the fact that your goodness was met with manipulation because you didn't set clear boundaries. You didn't demand respect, not because you weren't deserving of it, but because you hoped that kindness would be enough. Unfortunately, that's not the way the world works. The world doesn't operate on moral fairness. It operates on strength and clarity. The people who take from you, the ones who betray you, do it because they don't fear consequences. And the painful part is realizing that you were left vulnerable because you never thought to protect yourself from people who wouldn't respect your kindness. The people who have hurt you, who have betrayed your trust, will never understand the internal transformation that you go through in moments like these. They'll never see that the pain they caused was the catalyst for you to rise up stronger than before. What if you stopped looking at betrayal as something that breaks you? What if, instead, you viewed it as the exact moment you gain control over your own life? When you're betrayed, you're given a choice: to let it break you, or to use it as fuel to grow stronger. That's the turning point. The choice lies in how you react. You can choose to stay hurt, to keep replaying the betrayal in your mind, wondering why it happened, asking yourself what you could have done differently. But let me tell you something. Asking why will only keep you stuck in the pain. It will keep you in the past, reliving the hurt and questioning your worth. The answer isn't in the why, it's in the how. How will you move forward? How will you change because of this? Because the moment you stop looking for the why is the moment you start looking for the how. How do you become stronger? How do you protect yourself? How do you ensure that this doesn't happen again? You have the power to decide what betrayal means for you. It's a painful truth, but the reality is, life doesn't owe you fairness. People won't always treat you the way you treat them, but you have the power to decide how much of yourself you give to others. And when you choose to stop giving to people who don't appreciate it, that's when you take back your power. The people who hurt you, who didn't value your kindness, will never understand this transformation. And that's the best part. They won't have to. They didn't see your strength when you were giving, but they will see it when you choose not to give anymore. The moment you harden, the moment you set the boundaries you should have set long ago, the world will start to respect you differently. Seneca once wrote, "No man is good by accident. Goodness must be carefully learned. The same goes for strength. It must be carefully learned, built piece by piece, and tempered by the challenges you face." Betrayal isn't something that can break you forever unless you allow it to. It's an opportunity for you to step into your power, to refine your sense of self, and to learn the invaluable lesson that kindness is not enough on its own. It needs the strength to defend it, the boundaries to protect it, and the wisdom to know when to walk away. So the next time you're faced with betrayal, don't let it break you. Let it be the turning point. Let it be the lesson that hardens you, not into someone cold, but into someone unbreakable. Because that's the truth. Betrayal will always come, but it's up to you whether it destroys you or propels you into the next version of yourself. That choice is yours. And once you choose strength, once you choose to stop letting the world walk all over you, that's when you truly start living. You've been there before, haven't you? Lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering why you give so much of yourself and still end up with nothing but an empty feeling. It's as if the more you offer, the less you receive in return. You find yourself stuck in a cycle, trying harder, being more understanding, more forgiving, hoping that this time someone, anyone, will finally treat you with the same respect and care that you give. But deep down, you know it's not working. You keep giving and giving, yet it feels like you're losing more than you ever gain. The truth is, the world doesn't reward good intentions. It doesn't reward kindness if it's not backed by strength, boundaries, and the ability to stand firm. No matter how hard you try, it doesn't seem to make a difference. The world doesn't always play fair, and expecting it to return the favor for your good intentions only sets you up for disappointment. The more you give, the more you lose. That's the trap. The cycle of pouring everything you have into people and situations, believing that with enough patience and kindness, things will eventually change. But they don't. The truth is painful. Kindness alone doesn't shield you from the harsh realities of life. What the world rewards is resilience, the ability to withstand hardship without flinching, to take the blows without breaking. But somehow, in the pursuit of being good, you forget that. You expect the world to notice your goodness, to acknowledge your sacrifices, and to treat you in kind. Yet, the more you hope for that recognition, the more the weight of your unreciprocated efforts pulls you down. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." The more you resist the truth that kindness alone isn't enough, the more you end up in the same draining cycle, giving more and feeling emptier with every step. You've reached the point where you're no longer questioning why things aren't changing. You know why. It's because you're stuck in the trap of self-doubt. You're questioning your worth, wondering if you're doing something wrong. You tell yourself that if you just give a little more, if you just push a little harder, someone will finally see your value. But it doesn't work that way, does it? The more you bend, the more others expect you to bend, until there's nothing left of you to give. You've been taught to believe that giving is noble, that being selfless will eventually be rewarded. But that belief, while well-intentioned, isn't enough to protect you from the harsh realities of the world. It's a beautiful lie that leaves you empty and broken. The Stoic philosophers understood this. And so, the question arises, are you going to keep pouring yourself out, hoping that things will change, that your kindness will eventually be acknowledged? Or will you stop? Will you finally take a step back and look at the damage? Because that's where the real shift happens. When you stop and realize that your efforts haven't been enough, that they've been draining you instead of fulfilling you, you reach a point of decision. You either continue down this path, pouring from an empty cup, or you take a moment to heal, to rebuild, and to start setting boundaries that protect you from the world's demands. The trap of self-doubt isn't just about questioning whether you're good enough. It's about questioning whether you've given yourself enough to sustain you in a world that demands everything without giving much in return. And that's where you need to make the decision. Because once you stop giving for the sake of giving, once you stop expecting others to treat you as you treat them, something incredible happens. You stop questioning your worth. You stop seeking validation from people who won't give it to you. You realize that your value isn't dependent on what others think of you or how much they take from you. You stop expecting life to be fair, and in doing so, you stop playing by a set of rules that never served you in the first place. The moment you stop doubting yourself and start taking control of what you give and when you give it, everything shifts. It's not about being cold or indifferent. It's about understanding that you need to protect your energy, your time, and your resources for the things that truly matter, things that will help you grow, evolve, and move forward in a meaningful way. It's about learning to say no to things and people that drain you and yes to yourself. It's about knowing that you are enough just as you are, without needing to prove your worth through endless sacrifice. Once you take this step, you'll notice that the world doesn't feel so heavy anymore. You no longer carry the burden of trying to please everyone or be everything to everyone. Instead, you focus on the things that truly matter to you and let go of the rest. Self-doubt isn't the enemy. It's a signal that you've reached a point where change is necessary. It's an invitation to stop questioning your value and start questioning the systems, people, and behaviors that have caused you to lose sight of your own worth. When you can embrace this shift, when you stop pouring from an empty cup, you open the door to true strength. You stop waiting for the world to change and start creating the changes you need in your own life. And that's when things begin to align. When you stop chasing validation and start choosing to validate yourself, you no longer need to wonder if your kindness will be returned. You stop depending on others for your sense of worth. And suddenly you realize that everything you've been looking for, the respect, the recognition, the peace, is already within you. It's time to make a choice. You can keep doubting yourself, questioning why things aren't changing, or you can stop, stand tall and say, no more. Choose to stop doubting your worth. Choose to set boundaries. Choose to live for yourself, not for others. That's the path to strength. That's the path to real transformation. You see, the powerful don't beg. They don't chase after approval or try to make themselves understood. The powerful don't explain themselves because they don't need to. The world doesn't respect those who constantly seek validation, those who need to explain every action and every decision. The world respects those who stand firm in their choices, who move through life with clarity and purpose. This is where silence comes in. It's not about being mute for the sake of it. It's about being intentional with your words and your presence. The moment you realize that you don't need to justify your every move, the moment you let go of the need to make others understand you, that's when true strength begins to show. Silence becomes a tool, a weapon that shifts the power dynamic in your favor. It allows you to create space, to let your presence be felt without needing to fill it with words. There's a quote by Marcus Aurelius that says, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This is the essence of silence. You don't need to convince people of your worth. You don't need to argue about who you are or what you stand for. The more you try to explain, the more you dilute your own power. When you stop talking to justify your actions, people start to feel the weight of your presence. It's not loud, it's not showy, but it's undeniable. Your silence starts speaking louder than any words could. The message is clear. You are not someone to be ignored, to be disrespected, or to be walked over. Your silence says everything that needs to be said without a single word leaving your lips. And when that happens, the world begins to see you differently. They stop testing you. They stop pushing your boundaries because they know that your silence is not weakness. It's a warning. It's a signal that you've drawn your line, and crossing it will come at a cost. But this shift doesn't come easily. For most of us, silence feels uncomfortable. We're conditioned to fill the space with words, with explanations, with justifications. We feel like we need to speak to be understood, to make sure our intentions are clear. But what we fail to realize is that when we do this, we often give away our power. We give people the chance to challenge us, to question us, to pull us into debates and distractions that don't serve us. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And part of accepting yourself is recognizing that you don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to defend your choices. The moment you stop looking for validation, stop trying to make everyone understand you, you begin to experience a freedom that few ever do. You begin to live life on your own terms, guided by your own values and principles, without constantly worrying about how others perceive you. When you learn to use silence as a tool, you begin to see how much power it holds. Silence forces people to confront their own assumptions, their own judgments, without the crutch of words to hide behind. It forces them to feel the weight of your boundaries and your presence. When you stop explaining yourself, people start to realize that you don't need them to validate your existence. They don't need to understand you because your strength is self-evident. You don't need to chase respect. It's given to you through your presence, through your silence. The more you embrace this silence, the more people begin to see you as someone who cannot be easily swayed, easily manipulated, or easily dismissed. They will begin to respect you, not because you demand it, but because your silence speaks volumes. And in this silence, you find clarity. It's not just about not speaking, it's about creating the space to hear your own thoughts, to reflect, to plan, and to move with intention. When you stop filling every moment with words, you allow yourself the space to think, to strategize, and to make decisions from a place of calmness and control, rather than from a place of reaction. This is where true power lies, not in being the loudest voice in the room, but in being the calmest. True strength comes from within, and it's most evident when you don't need to shout to be heard. Silence allows you to hold your ground, to make your decisions without feeling the need to justify them, and to create the kind of presence that makes people stop and listen. Not because you've said anything, but because your very presence demands attention. So, the next time you find yourself in a situation where you feel the urge to explain, to justify, or to defend, remember that your silence is enough. It's not a weakness, it's not an absence, it's strength. It's a powerful reminder that you don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to explain your actions. You simply need to be, and in that being, you'll command the respect you've been seeking all along. In a world that constantly tests your strength, you can't afford to be the person everyone walks all over. The sad reality is that when your presence doesn't carry weight, when there's no fear of consequence for those who wrong you, you become expendable. You become someone whose value is only measured by how much others can take from you. Think about it. How many times have you given your all, only to have others walk away the moment they didn't need you anymore? It's painful, isn't it? But the truth is, you were too available, too willing to give, and too afraid to set boundaries. And in doing so, you taught others that you had nothing to lose, that there were no consequences to taking from you. It's a painful lesson, but it's one that must be learned if you're to stop being taken for granted. Carl Jung said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." Understanding this truth about your own worth, about what you will and will not tolerate, is the key to transforming how the world sees you. Here's the shift you need to make. You have to stop needing people to like you. You have to stop chasing validation. Stop waiting for others to affirm your worth. The moment you stop seeking approval from others, you stop giving them power over you. You stop letting them dictate your sense of self. That's when everything changes. When you stop chasing validation, you begin to create distance from those who simply want to feed off your energy. You stop giving away pieces of yourself to people who don't deserve it. And in that space, you begin to reclaim your power. When you stop worrying about how others perceive you, when you stop living for the approval of others, you become untouchable. You become the kind of person who is no longer expendable. People will start to notice that you are not someone they can manipulate or take advantage of. Your boundaries become clear, and your presence becomes a statement. The real question, though, is how do you make this shift? How do you go from being someone who chases validation to someone who stands firm in their own worth? It starts with understanding that your value isn't tied to how others treat you. Your worth is not dependent on their acceptance, their praise, or their attention. Once you realize this, you stop bending over backward to please everyone. You start prioritizing yourself, your time, your energy, your peace. and you stop letting others drain you. Seneca put it this way: we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Most of the pain we experience in relationships is self-inflicted. It's the fear of rejection, the fear of not being liked, that keeps us stuck in unhealthy dynamics. But once you let go of that fear, once you stop worrying about whether people like you or not, you unlock a new level of freedom. This shift is not easy. It requires you to get comfortable with discomfort, to be okay with the fact that not everyone will like you or agree with you. But here's the truth. The people who truly matter will respect you for it. They'll respect you for not needing their approval. They'll respect you for holding your ground, for setting boundaries, for being clear about what you will and will not tolerate. The people who respect you will stay. The ones who are just there to take will leave, and that's okay. Let them go. It's not your job to make everyone happy. It's your job to protect your peace, your energy, and your time. Once you stop chasing validation, you stop giving your power away. That's when you become untouchable. That's when you realize that you are the one in control of your life. You create the space for those who truly value you to come closer. You stop letting people use you. You stop letting them drain your energy. And in that space, you find your true strength. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to prove themselves to anyone. Your silence speaks louder than words. Your boundaries become your strength. People start to sense your presence before you even speak, and they begin to respect you, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it through the way you carry yourself. Fear, in this context, isn't a weakness. It's a weapon. When you use fear as a tool to set clear boundaries, to stand firm in your truth, you shift the power dynamic in your favor. You stop being afraid of what others think. You stop fearing rejection. Instead, you become the one who holds the power, not because you demand it, but because you've learned how to protect yourself. The world will still test you, but it can't break you. And that's the beauty of embracing this shift. Once you stop chasing approval and start living on your own terms, you become untouchable. You stop being just another person who is expendable, and instead, you become someone whose presence is undeniable. But how can you become who you truly are if you're constantly sacrificing your needs for the sake of others? How can you stand firm in your identity if you never take the time to define what's acceptable and what isn't? The answer is, you can't. Setting boundaries is the first step in reclaiming your identity, your space, and your power. It's not selfish to protect yourself. It's not mean to say no when something doesn't align with your values or your peace. It's a necessary act of self-respect. And when you finally start to set those boundaries, when you stop apologizing for wanting to be treated with dignity, the world starts to respond differently. The people around you begin to recognize that you're no longer willing to be treated poorly, and they either respect that or fall away. But either way, you're left with a clearer, stronger sense of who you are. The key here is consistency. Setting boundaries isn't a one-time decision. It's a continuous practice of saying enough whenever someone crosses a line. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might feel guilty. You might worry that you're being too harsh or too distant. But here's the thing. The moment you start standing up for yourself, the world begins to shift in your favor. People respect strength. They may not always like it, but they will respect it. And over time, you'll see that the people who truly matter will stick around. They'll respect you because they know that you won't tolerate being disrespected, that you won't let them take more than they should. And that respect, it becomes the foundation for stronger, more meaningful connections. You begin to surround yourself with people who value you, who honor your boundaries, and who don't see your strength as a threat, but as a source of mutual respect. But the real power in setting boundaries comes from within. It's not about controlling others. It's about taking control of your own life. It's about learning that your worth is not determined by how much you give or how much others take from you. Your worth is intrinsic. It's inherent in who you are, not in how much you sacrifice for others. Once you understand that, once you accept that your boundaries are a reflection of your self-respect, you stop seeking validation from anyone else. You stop worrying about whether people will approve of your decisions. You realize that it doesn't matter if someone doesn't like you or doesn't agree with your boundaries. What matters is that you respect yourself enough to enforce them, and that's when you truly become untouchable. Setting boundaries isn't just about protecting yourself from others. It's about protecting your peace. It's about creating the space you need to grow, to thrive, and to show up as the best version of yourself. When you're no longer drained by toxic relationships, when you're no longer constantly giving to people who take without giving back, you free up emotional and mental space to focus on what truly matters. And that's when you begin to see your life change. You stop being the person who always gives and never receives. You stop being the person who's always available, always trying to make everyone else happy. And in that space, you finally begin to experience the true power that comes from self-respect, clarity, and unwavering boundaries. Ruthlessness isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's understanding who you are, what you stand for, and what you will and won't tolerate. It's about knowing that your time, your energy, and your emotional bandwidth are precious and not to be taken for granted. Being ruthless doesn't mean being heartless. It means being precise, decisive, and unwavering. When you make a decision, you make it with confidence, and you stand by it. You don't bend to please others, and you don't justify your choices to anyone. Your choices are yours, and that's all that matters. This isn't about being ruthless in every interaction, every relationship, or every situation. It's about understanding when ruthlessness is necessary. You don't need to assert your boundaries in every moment, but when it's important, when it's critical, that's when you must be unwavering. You can't afford to let people push you around, take advantage of your kindness, or expect you to be available whenever they need you. Ruthlessness comes from a place of self-respect. It's about knowing that you can't give your energy to everyone who asks for it. You can't keep bending over backwards for people who don't appreciate you, who don't respect you. And the moment you accept that truth, when you stop chasing closure, when you stop seeking validation, you become untouchable. What does it mean to become untouchable? It means that you no longer rely on others to define you. It means that you're no longer waiting for the world to give you the recognition you think you deserve. You no longer seek out praise or approval from others. You're not seeking closure from people who hurt you, and you're not waiting for an apology that may never come. You understand that your worth isn't contingent on anyone else's actions, opinions, or recognition. You know that you have everything you need within yourself, and once you realize that, once you fully embrace your own power, the world starts to respect you differently. People will see you as someone who cannot be easily manipulated, who cannot be taken for granted. They'll recognize that you have boundaries and that those boundaries are not to be crossed without consequences. And here's the key. When you embrace ruthlessness, you stop being afraid of being alone. You stop fearing solitude because you understand that being alone is far better than being surrounded by people who drain you, who take advantage of your kindness, who don't respect your boundaries. You realize that the peace you find in solitude is worth more than any relationship, any situation, or any validation you could get from others. The ability to walk away, to detach yourself from toxic relationships, from situations that no longer serve you, that's power. And the more you practice this, the more you realize that it's not about pushing people away. It's about protecting yourself. It's about ensuring that the people who remain in your life are the ones who truly deserve to be there. It's easy to fall into the trap of wanting to please everyone. of wanting to be liked by everyone. But that only leaves you vulnerable. It leaves you open to being taken advantage of. It leaves you stuck in relationships that drain you, relationships where you're constantly giving and never receiving. But once you stop chasing approval, once you stop seeking validation from others, you begin to see the world through a different lens. You realize that not everyone deserves your time, not everyone deserves your energy. And when you can walk away from the people, the situations, and the relationships that no longer align with who you are and what you value, that's when you truly become untouchable. Every time you let someone cross a line, you break a little more. It doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, a small sacrifice here, a compromise there. You give up a little bit of your peace, a little bit of your worth, just to keep the peace, to avoid confrontation. But over time, those small sacrifices add up. You let yourself be taken advantage of, and with each instance, you lose a piece of your soul. It's like giving away little parts of yourself, and before you know it, you're left wondering who you are, wondering where that strong, confident person went. That's the cost of constantly bending for others, of not standing up for yourself, of hoping that if you just keep giving, everything will eventually balance out. But it won't. The more you give away, the less you have left. And what happens when there's nothing left to give? What if you could stop that? What if you could stop giving, stop explaining yourself, and stop constantly trying to please others? Imagine the freedom in that. What if you could live life on your own terms, no longer dependent on external validation, no longer seeking approval from people who don't have your best interest at heart? That's where the real shift happens. The moment you stop trying to fit in, the moment you stop trying to make everyone understand you, you start reclaiming your power. It's not about being perfect or being liked by everyone. It's about knowing who you are, what you stand for, and making choices that align with your values. You only need to be understood by one person, yourself. When you reach the point where you no longer seek approval from others, when you stop depending on others' opinions to define your worth, something changes. You become free. Free from the weight of others' expectations, free from the burden of constantly trying to fit into a mold that was never made for you. You begin to realize that the only opinion that truly matters is your own. You begin to trust yourself, your judgment, and your decisions. And that's where the shift happens. You stop being afraid of rejection because you no longer rely on others' validation to feel worthy. It's not easy. The world conditions us to seek approval, to fit in, to be liked. We're taught that kindness, empathy, and understanding will win us the love and respect we crave. But the truth is, kindness alone isn't enough to protect you from being taken advantage of. The world respects those who know their worth and are not afraid to assert it. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop justifying your choices, you show the world that you don't need their approval to be who you are. You become untouchable, not because you are harsh or unkind, but because you have built a life that is grounded in self-respect and clarity. The more you practice this, the more you realize that people will either accept you for who you are or leave. And that's okay. You don't need everyone to accept you, to like you, or to understand you. You only need to be true to yourself. And the people who can't handle that, the people who expect you to explain or apologize for your boundaries, will fall away. The ones who remain will be the ones who truly respect you, who see your worth and stand by you. Once you stop seeking approval, you create the space to become the person you've always wanted to be. You stop waiting for permission to live your life. You stop letting fear or insecurity dictate your choices. Instead, you make decisions based on what feels right to you, not on what others expect. This is when you truly begin to live. And in that freedom, in that self-respect, you start to feel more alive than ever before. In every relationship, in every decision you make, there's a balance to be found. You can't please everyone. You can't make everyone happy, but you can make yourself happy by choosing to be authentic, by choosing to live life on your own terms. The end of the old you isn't about becoming someone different. It's about shedding the parts of yourself that were never meant to be there, the parts that were shaped by others' expectations, the parts that were afraid to stand up for what you truly believe in. The end of the old you is about stepping into your true power, the power that comes from within. It's the power that comes from knowing your worth, from setting boundaries, from refusing to be pushed around by the world's demands. It's about finding peace in solitude, in your own company, and realizing that you are enough just as you are. You no longer need to explain yourself. You no longer need to justify your choices. You just need to be. And that's when the world will begin to see you differently. That's when you become unstoppable. Because when you stop seeking approval from others, you start living for yourself. And that, my friend, is the most powerful thing you can do. The truth is simple. You don't need anyone's approval to be who you are. Once you stop seeking validation, you step into your true power. And in that power, you'll find freedom. The freedom to live life on your own terms, to be unapologetically yourself. So, take that step. Let go of the old you and embrace the strength that lies within. Thank you for being a part of Stoic Journal. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to explore one of the suggested videos on the screen. Keep learning, keep growing, and stay true to yourself.